We're looking for a fresher voice for our next product cycle, she said, sitting across from me in the small glass-walled office. Someone who really gets where the industry's headed. My name's Josh Carter, 38 years old. For nearly 8 years, I was senior gear designer at Timberline Works, an outdoor equipment company headquartered in Boise, Idaho. At least I was, until that Thursday, when Kristen called me in. Angela from HR was already seated with her iPad open, and that overly gentle tone HR reps use before dropping the axe. Honestly, I'd seen it coming. Ever since Kristen took over as creative director, her background was luxury fitness branding. She'd been reshaping Timberline's look to appeal more to upscale casual hikers than the hardcore backcountry folks we built our name on. Everything I brought to the table, weatherproofing, field-tested modularity, designs that worked 10,000 feet up a glacier, was suddenly too utilitarian. Your direction doesn't quite match our evolving vision, she said, sliding the separation paperwork across the table. Her nails were flawless. I doubt they'd ever lit a camp stove or adjusted a carabiner mid-storm. I nodded, stayed professional. 8 years of my design language had earned this brand credibility with pro climbers and search and rescue teams. The Trailflex Rucksack Series, mine. The VersaShell Hybrid Jacket that won 2 outdoor retailer awards, also mine. But none of that made a dent now. I gathered my field notebooks, backed up my files, unplugged my gear, and left quietly. What Kristen didn't realize, I'd been developing a side portfolio for over a year. Concepts Timberline dismissed as too unconventional or not brand consistent. I still believed in every one of them. Driving home through the foothills, my phone buzzed with a message from Eric and RD. They just let the heart of this place walk out the door. I smiled for the first time all day. I got into design helping my uncle restore wooden drift boats back in Missoula. He taught me that form always follows function. No fluff, no showboating, just what works and works well. That mindset took me through Cal Poly's industrial design program and into a career I built from scratch. When I joined Timberline in 2015, the company was struggling, solid gear, poor vision. I helped reshape their entire product identity. The CEO back then, Ron Ellis, understood the mission. Make stuff that works first. Looks good second, my uncle used to say. The folks actually using our gear, they'll know the difference. He was right. Within 3 years of joining Timberline, sales had doubled. Real hikers, climbers, park rangers, they trusted the brand because our products solved real-world problems. The Trailflex packs distributed weight so well that backcountry guides started requesting them by name for week-long expeditions. The VersaShell Thermal Adaptive Jacket responded to temperature changes without layering up like body armor. It wasn't flashy, it just worked. And it won awards because it came from real insight, not market trend decks. Then Ron retired, and that's when everything shifted. The board brought in Vivian Steele as the new CEO, fresh from a stint in premium lifestyle retail. One of her first moves? Hiring Kristen Yep, the one with the glossy lookbook background, as creative director. Suddenly, our team meetings weren't about durability ratings or field test data. They were about visual cohesion and elevated lifestyle narratives. My designs, first challenged, then quietly shelved. The prime project started going to a crop of recent design grads with slick Behance pages but zero trail experience. 3 months ago, I submitted prototypes for a new line of all-weather gear, multi-climate adaptable, lightweight, user-tested. Kristen barely glanced at them before calling them underwhelming. The next week, she presented nearly identical designs to the executive team, credited to Justin, her newest hire from a boutique fashion label in Portland. That night, I called Thomas, a longtime friend who'd moved over to Pioneer Ridge, Timberline's biggest rival, now leading their materials team. "So, how airtight's your contract these days?" he asked after I filled him in. "No non-compete," I told him. Ron always said they were corporate paranoia. Thomas paused. "Well then," he said slowly, "that's very useful to know." The severance Timberline offered was solid. 3 months' salary, continued health coverage, some stock options left untouched. 7 years in, they were at least polite about the exit. I signed the paperwork, shook hands, and drove home. That afternoon, my apartment felt unfamiliar, quieter. Smaller somehow, but clearer too. I poured a cup of coffee, sat at my drafting table, and pulled out the stack of designs Kristen had ignored over the past year. 12 full concepts, fully detailed, each one designed to fix specific pain points I'd seen out in the field, each one made for people who rely on gear not to look cool, but to stay alive. Rain started to fall outside. I kept sketching. I realized then I hadn't been designing for her version of Timberline. I'd still been building for the version I believed in, the one that stood for real performance, real reliability, and gear that earned its reputation the hard way. But that version of Timberline, it didn't exist anymore. The brand had shifted, chasing aesthetics over purpose, following trends instead of solving problems. At 7 p.m., my phone buzzed. Melissa Hargrove, creative director at Pioneer Ridge. "Thomas says you're available," she said without even introducing herself. "Says you were the real engine behind Timberline's best years." I said nothing, just waited. "You sitting on anything worth showing?" she asked. "We're gearing up for our fall launch and could use someone who actually understands performance design." I glanced down at the pile of sketches Timberline had tossed aside. "I might have a few ideas." "Send them tonight," she said. "If they're good, we talk tomorrow." After we hung up, I spent 3 focused hours tightening up 6 of my strongest concepts. The functionality stayed the same, but I sharpened the presentation's clear diagrams, specs, use case examples. No fluff, just gear that worked. Just after midnight, I sent them with a short note outlining how each solved a real user need. I went to bed and slept deeper than I had in months. The next morning, I woke up to a simple email, 10 a.m. at my office. "Bring your rate and contract terms. Melissa." I showered, pulled on my field jacket and worn-in boots, no business casual today, and headed to Pioneer Ridge HQ across town. The receptionist buzzed me in and walked me straight to Melissa's office. It was chaos in the best way. Fabric swatches, climbing harnesses, half-built prototypes on every surface. It looked like a place where gear was made, not pitched. She pointed to a corkboard. All 6 of my designs were printed and pinned. "These solve problems we've been stuck on for 2 seasons, she said, tapping the center concept. "Especially this one." Her finger rested on my modular weatherproof system, adaptable, lightweight, designed for actual movement in real terrain. "How soon can you start?" she asked. "I'm ready now." Melissa gave a tight nod. "Good. We're fast-tracking this line. Very fast." For the first time in over a year, I smiled. 1 week into my new role, I got a call from Peter Tran, Timberline's longtime production manager. We'd worked side by side for years, tweaking supply chains, testing materials, solving impossible equations between design intent and real-world constraints. "Josh, this is off the record," he said, "but it's getting bad over here." I said nothing. "Justin's concepts look great on a screen, but they fall apart in prototyping. Materials don't behave the way he thinks. Packs are coming in 2 pounds over spec. Thermal gear's failing wet tests." I exhaled. "Not my issue anymore." Peter hesitated. "Kristen's telling the exec team you left without proper documentation, that your exit sabotaged production, that you walked out on purpose." I sat upright. "That's not just false, that's defamatory." "I know," he said, "but she's persuasive. Vivian asked me yesterday if there was any truth to it." I went still. This wasn't just professional fallout, it was personal sabotage. My name, my reputation, my credibility were under fire. Against my better judgment, I typed a short, direct email to Vivian Steele, Timberline's CEO. "Vivian, I'd like to clear the air directly. Can we meet? Coffee's on me." "Josh," she replied within the hour. "Tomorrow, 8:30. Coffee house on Colfax. I'll see you there." The cafe was crowded, which I took as a good sign. Neutral ground, public setting, less room for posturing. Vivian showed up 10 minutes late, already glancing at her watch as she walked in. I didn't waste time. "I'll get straight to it," I said. "I've been told Kristen's claiming I left the team without proper documentation. That's false. All project files are archived on the shared drive. I personally walked Justin through my full production workflow before I left." Vivian nodded, expression unreadable. "She said you might get defensive. She paused, then added lightly, Josh, this industry's tight-knit. I'd hate to see your reputation get clouded by drama. There it was, the implied threat, wrapped in polite corporate language. Stay quiet, or we'll make this messy for you. I appreciate the concern, I said evenly. I'd hate for Timberline to waste resources trying to manufacture untested designs that don't scale. Her eyes narrowed slightly. We'll handle our production internally. Thank you. I trust you'll use discretion with anything company-related moving forward. Without waiting for a reply, she got up and walked out. A moment later, my phone buzzed. Melissa. Contracts are ready. Let's move fast on your weatherproof line. I looked up, catching one last glimpse of Vivian disappearing down the block. She had no idea what was coming. 3 days later, I received a certified letter from Timberline's legal department. They were conducting a routine review of my exit documentation and flagged potential confidentiality concerns. The language was careful, no formal allegations, just enough corporate phrasing to suggest I might have breached policy, enough to make someone nervous. I forwarded the letter to Melissa. She passed it straight to Pioneer Ridge's legal counsel. Their response came fast. Textbook intimidation, the firm's attorney told me. There's no non-compete. You own your current work. And your exit trail from Timberline is clean. So I don't respond? I asked. You don't need to, he said. But if you want to, we'll draft something airtight. Your call. Just know they're not suing. They're fishing, trying to slow you down. I stared at the letter for a few seconds, then closed the email. Let them fish. I had real work to do. I asked if I should respond. No, the attorney said. We'll handle it. That evening, Pioneer Ridge's legal team sent a calm, lethal reply to Timberline's attorneys. We have detailed documentation of Mr. Carter's original design submissions during his employment at your company, including timestamps and internal feedback trails where they were explicitly rejected. If necessary, we are prepared to compare these records with your current product development roadmap in court. 2 days passed. Total silence from Timberline. Then my phone rang. It was Peter, whispering like he was calling from a stairwell. What the hell did you do? He asked. Kristen had a closed door with legal yesterday. She came out white as a sheet. I didn't answer. Look, just watch your back, he said. She's not done. 2 days later, Thomas texted, lunch, downtown, something you need to see. We met at a low-key burger joint halfway between both our offices. He slid his iPad across the table as we sat down. You're going to want to see this. It was an internal Timberline marketing brief for their fall collection. I scrolled through, paused, then felt my stomach drop. There they were, my designs. The exact layouts Kristen had rejected 6 months earlier, now repackaged as the Elevation series, with Justin's name front and center as lead designer. They're aiming to launch in September, Thomas said. Full campaign, big spend, materials already ordered. It hit like a punch. She'd buried my work, waited until I was gone, then brought it back without me in the picture. She planned this, I muttered. She always intended to use the designs, just didn't want me attached to them. Thomas nodded grimly. Looks that way. He pulled the iPad back and tapped into a second document. But there's more. Melissa pitched your collection to our exec team yesterday. They've approved an accelerated timeline. I raised an eyebrow. How accelerated? August, he said. We'll hit market before Timberline. Full rollout. And you're getting full design credit, front and center. I leaned back in the booth processing. 1 month before Timberline's launch. Head-to-head, same category, same season. Only this time, my name was on it. Thomas looked me square in the eye. But you need to make the call now. Once production's rolling, there's no pulling back. I didn't flinch. Let's go. That evening, I called Melissa and gave my formal yes to the accelerated timeline. The contract she sent over included something Timberline never even considered. Royalties on every unit sold using my designs. And full creative control over final materials and specs. We're calling it the Summit Series, Melissa said, and we want your name front and center in the campaign. 2 days later, I walked into Pioneer Ridge HQ and signed the paperwork. Then I handed over everything. Not just sketches, but full build files, material lists, CAD blueprints, sourcing strategies, assembly tolerances, test protocols. It was a blueprint for something real, something I believed in. When I got home that night, there was a new email in my personal inbox from Kristen. Josh, hope you're doing well. I've been reviewing a few upcoming initiatives, and it struck me that your input could be valuable. Would you be open to consulting on a few pieces? Let's reconnect. Kristen, I didn't reply. Just hit delete. The next week, I walked through Pioneer Ridge's production facility with Diane, their lead manufacturing engineer. She was sharp, no nonsense. The kind of person who doesn't get impressed easily. This system of yours, she said, pointing to my modular gear line, is unlike anything we've done. It's elegant, sure, but it's also hellishly complex to build. I nodded. If we're making the August deadline, I'll be here, every day. She gave me a look. You better mean that. I do. And I did. For the next 4 weeks, I practically lived in the facility. 16-hour shifts, cot in the corner office. One night we stayed up past 3 a.m., just testing seam integrity under water pressure. My hands were raw. My eyes burned. But we hit every milestone. And the team, they started to trust me. Because I wasn't just handing off designs from a pedestal. I was there, in the trenches, solving problems side by side. When something didn't work, I owned it. When Diane flagged a flaw, I listened. I wasn't Kristen, who waved off manufacturing like it was someone else's job. I respected the build, not just the concept. I forwarded the message to Pioneer Ridge's legal team without comment and got back to work. What happened next moved faster than anything I'd experienced in this industry. Within 3 weeks, prototype units of the Summit series were ready. Melissa wasn't bluffing. This team moved. I spent full days in the workshop, working elbow to elbow with production techs and engineers, refining every stitch, seam, and stress point. The Summit series included 5 fully integrated products, a modular backpack system, all-weather outerwear with removable insulation and shell components, adaptable trail footwear, ergonomic camp hardware, and a line of specialized accessories designed to lock into the larger system. Each piece functioned independently, but together they formed a seamless kit. It was the kind of systems-based design I'd pitched to Timberline for years, only to be told it was too complex for our market. But here at Pioneer Ridge, Melissa got it. She even brought me into the marketing meetings, something Kristen never once did, and listened when I explained how we should position the gear. These aren't style pieces, I told the team. They're tools for people who can't afford gear failure when they're 40 miles from the nearest trailhead. They got it, and they ran with it. By late July, the industry buzz had started. A few retail buyers who'd received early samples were already placing pre-orders. Outdoor forums picked up on the rumors. People were asking how Pioneer Ridge, a traditionally low-profile player, suddenly had the most talked-about product line of the year. Then I got the call. Peter from Timberline. Josh, did you... He stopped himself mid-sentence. Never mind, I shouldn't ask. What's going on over there? I asked, though I already knew. He hesitated. Then quietly, Vivian saw Pioneer Ridge's preview catalog. The Summit series. It's something else. Kristen's losing it. She's saying your team stole concepts from us. I said nothing. There wasn't anything to say. They had buried my work. They tried to erase my name, and now they were watching it re-emerge fully realized, fully functional, and heading to market before them. Only this time, with my name right on the tag. The thing is, Peter continued, we both know none of this was stolen from Timberline's current pipeline. These are your originals, aren't they? The ones Kristen shut down? I paused. I can't comment on that, I said evenly. You don't have to, he replied. Your name's right there in the catalog. Designed by Josh Carter, former lead designer at Timberline Gear Co. Clear as day, it's brilliant. The next morning, I got a call from Vivian Steele herself. I let it go to voicemail. Josh, this is incredibly unprofessional. We need to discuss this situation immediately. I didn't call back. Instead, I headed to Pioneer Ridge HQ for our final pre-launch alignment. Marketing was dialed in. Packaging was printed. Production was humming. In just under 2 weeks, the Summit Series would be live in specialty outdoor retailers across the country. 1 full month ahead of Timberline's suspiciously familiar elevation line. The night before launch, I couldn't sleep. 7 years at Timberline, dozens of field tests, hundreds of prototypes, thousands of hours. All of it had led here, not in the way I planned, but maybe in the only way it could have worked. At 5 a.m., restless and wired, I got in the car and drove out to Flat Rock Trail, just outside town. It was the same trail where I'd tested some of my earliest designs back in the Timberline days. The pre-dawn air was cool, damp, perfect conditions for the waterproof tech we'd spent months perfecting. I hiked to the ridge and stopped, watched the horizon. Then my phone buzzed. Melissa, it's live. Site just launched. Orders are already rolling in. I stood there for a while, watching the sunrise push through the clouds, and I felt it. This strange, bittersweet mix of vindication and grief. I hadn't wanted things to end this way with Timberline. I'd given them everything: time, loyalty, innovation. But in the end, they'd chosen Kristen's glossy vision over gear that actually worked in the field. Now it was out of our hands. Now the market would decide. By the time I made it back to the trailhead and unlocked my car, I had 17 missed calls. Unknown numbers, outdoor journalists, industry bloggers, gear reviewers, all trying to get the inside scoop on Pioneer Ridge's surprising new launch. And one message from Kristen. "You've made a serious mistake." I finally called her back. "No," I said the moment she answered. "You did." The Summit Series launched on August 12th. By noon, the Pioneer Ridge website had crashed twice from traffic overload. Customer service lines were jammed with retailers trying to bump their order volumes. We watched it all unfold from Melissa's office, screens refreshing every few seconds. Then came the reviews. Revolutionary. A new benchmark in integrated gear systems. The future of backcountry performance. Every major outdoor outlet ran coverage, and in each article, my name was right there. 3 days later, Outside Magazine ran a long-form feature. Separated at birth? The curious case of two identical product lines. They didn't explicitly accuse Timberline of IP theft, but they didn't need to. The article laid out the timeline. My employment dates, the rejection of the original concepts, my hiring at Pioneer Ridge, and the near-identical product suite Timberline was now attributing to Justin. Outdoor forums lit up. Industry folks who'd met me at OR shows or knew my work from product panels started connecting the dots. Side-by-side comparison posts went viral. Design community Twitter and Reddit were full of pointed questions. IP attorneys weighed in. Buyers pulled back from Timberline's pre-orders. And that's when Vivian called again. This time I picked up. "This is completely unacceptable," she said, skipping any pleasantries. "You've deliberately undermined our company's credibility in the market." I stayed calm. "I designed products," I said, "for a company that hired me on contract to do exactly that. You know what I mean?" "No, Vivian, I don't. My designs were rejected by Timberline. Pioneer Ridge developed them legally, transparently, and with full attribution. If that's a problem for you, you'll need to take it up with the truth." There was silence on the line, and then she hung up. "Products you're now selling," I said, "under someone else's name." Vivian didn't respond right away. "We'll need to explore legal options," she finally said, her voice tight. "That would be interesting," I replied, "because I have emails dated and archived from Kristen rejecting those exact designs 6 months ago. What would a court make of the fact that you're now producing them with someone else's name on the spec sheets?" Silence. "You should have valued what you had," I said quietly. "Good luck with your launch." The following week, Timberline announced a strategic delay on the Elevation Series for further refinement. The industry knew exactly what that meant: a retreat. By October, the Summit Series had broken every first-quarter sales record in Pioneer Ridge's history. My royalty checks were already outpacing my best annual salary at Timberline, and we were just getting started. Melissa promoted me to design director, put me in charge of a 6-person team, and gave me full creative control over the next 3 seasonal lines. Thomas officially transferred over from materials and joined my department as technical design advisor. Eventually, Timberline released a watered-down revision of their gear scrubbed of any resemblance to my work. The reviews were lukewarm. The collection lacked cohesion. Their stock dropped 8 that quarter. That winter at the Denver Outdoor Gear Expo, I spotted Kristen at the bar alone, hunched over a cocktail. As I passed, she turned. "Congratulations on your success," she said flatly. Her voice was neutral, maybe even bitter. I nodded but kept walking. "You could have stayed," she added. "Fought for your designs. Why didn't you?" I paused just long enough. "Because some places," I said, "don't deserve the fight." She flinched just a little, then straightened. "Vivian's stepping down next month. The board asked me to serve as interim CEO. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "Good luck," I said, and meant it. The industry needs strong companies. 6 months later, a package arrived at my studio. No return address, just a thick padded envelope. Inside, all of my original sketchbooks from my years at Timberline, and a handwritten note. "Josh, these belong to you. Kristen's gone. Thought you should know." It's about Peter. I flipped open one of the books. A concept I'd drawn nearly 3 years earlier. A modular alpine tent system, engineered for extreme weather and full adaptability. I'd never shown it to Kristen. Never had the chance. That evening, I called Melissa. "I've got something," I said. "Winter 2026. You're going to want to see it." The following spring, Pioneer Ridge's stock had doubled. Timberline issued a press release announcing a leadership restructure and a return to core values. I didn't pay much attention. I was too busy designing what came next. Sometimes late at night, I think back on those years at Timberline, not with resentment, but with clarity. They taught me something important, just not what they meant to. In this industry and life, your work speaks for itself if you let it. Kristen tried to silence mine, but in doing so, she only made its voice louder. The best revenge wasn't proving her wrong. It was finally finding a place that recognized what I'd known all along. Good design isn't about chasing trends. It's about solving real problems for real people.